Hi furniture friends, you are going to love this week's furniture makeover video. I found this mid-century modern piece of furniture on Facebook Marketplace, but the pictures weren't that great. However, I knew that design on the bottom and those handles had to be something special. So the first thing I did was try to find a maker's mark. And wouldn't you know, it was the last drawer I looked in, but it's a good one. This dresser is by American of Martinsville, which is a furniture company known for producing high-quality mid-century modern furniture that generally sells very well. At some point in time, someone had refinished this, and you could see where there used to be a mirror that the original color was much lighter than the color that's currently on it. So the first thing I needed to do was figure out how to remove the current finish from this dresser. I grabbed my carbide scraper to scrape off a little bit of the finish just to get a feel for how easy it was going to come off. And luckily it was going to come off pretty easily. So I continued working with my carbide scraper until I got tired of doing that because it's a lot of work. And then I went ahead and grabbed just a little bit of acetone to see if that would remove that existing varnish. And look at that, it removes it extremely well. I didn't even bother cleaning this before I got to work on it. I was just so excited to see what was underneath it. I grabbed some steel wool. This is a 000 steel wool. And then I'm going to use acetone and steel wool to remove the remainder of the existing top coat and stain. A little furniture refinishing hack that I discovered is to put down paper towels and pour your acetone on top of the paper towels. This prevents it from evaporating as quickly as it usually does, and it holds it in contact with the surface longer, which helps to remove that old finish. Once the old stain was off, I used my orbital sander and 120 grit sandpaper to finish it nice and smooth, and then cleaned it up with some acetone. I then took off these drawer handles. These are the coolest drawer pulls I think I've ever seen. It is a piece of wood that fits into this little kind of metal, maybe brass holder, and then screws in place. You can bet I am definitely going to reuse these vintage drawer pulls because they are absolutely fantastic. All right, now let's remove the finish from the drawers. If you follow me on Instagram, which you absolutely should, you've probably heard me refer to this as the pretzel dresser. These bottom drawers remind me of pretzel sticks, like somebody just took bags of pretzel sticks and glued them across the front of the drawers. But of course, that's not what they did. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove the old finish from the flat wood on all of the drawers, get them ready so that they'll have the same finish as the top, and then I'm going to go in and figure out how to tackle those pretzel sticks. After lots and lots and lots more sanding, I finally had the front of all three of the bottom drawers sanded nice and smooth. I used my leaf blower to get the extra dust off of them, then gave them a quick cleaning, and now it's time to work on the sides. I broke down and picked up a hydraulic lift at Harbor Freight, and I can tell you this is a game changer that every furniture refinisher needs to purchase. It is fantastic when you need to get to the detailed areas, the undersides, the bottoms of furniture, and it really helps me move things around by myself in my garage. Lot more sanding and then some cleaning with acetone, and those pretzel sticks went from dark roasted to nice golden brown. Every piece of furniture that I refinish is a science experiment. Each piece of wood reacts differently with different products. Now, the veneer on this looked really pretty when I had wet it with water, so I decided just to go ahead and put a thin layer of polyurethane over it. Actually, this is polyacrylic, which is a water-based product, just to see if I could get away with just putting some polyacrylic on it and leaving it just natural and not adding any stain or doing anything different to it. For the pretzel drawers, I found a gel stain by Dixie Belle in the color Tobacco Road that I applied to the pretzel sticks to make them a richer, darker, neutral brown. So much of refinishing vintage furniture is removing an old finish, cleaning it up, and then adding a new finish, and sometimes almost in the exact same color. But I thought the contrast between the darker design on the bottom drawers and the lighter color on the top would be really pretty on this dresser. I then applied the same clear polyacrylic to all of the dresser drawers. Then I spent some time cleaning up the hardware. Now, a lot of times mid-century modern furniture used different pieces of wood when putting it together and different types of wood. So here you can see the same clear coat resulted in 3 different colors on the tops of these drawers. So I thought, okay, let me see if I just put a little bit of stain over it, can I get them to blend and even out? So that's what I'm doing now is I'm applying this stain in hopes that it'll make the tops of these 3 drawers all appear to be the same or very similar color. Unfortunately, I didn't get the result that I was hoping for. So I'm going to have to think on this a little bit. Maybe if I let it dry, the stain might darken or lighten. In the meantime, I went ahead and I applied some of the dark gel stain to the very bottom base of the dresser to kind of match the drawer fronts and also give it a little bit of a floating illusion, which I think is pretty cool with these mid-century modern pieces. I also used that same gel stain to refinish the wood on the drawer pulls. This required a lot of patience and kind of gently painting the gel stain on, letting it dry, and then putting on a second coat for each of them. I'll then go over and seal them with a polyacrylic. All right, my dear subscribers, here's where I'm about to do something either incredibly smart or incredibly stupid, and I hope you'll let me know in the comments what you think. But I decided since I couldn't get them to darken to the same tone that I would put a little bit of a paint wash on them and try to lighten them. So what I'm doing here is I have a little bit of paint in a neutral tan color, and I'm going to put this over the top piece of each of the drawers, just kind of letting it sit on there for a minute or two and then wiping it back off so I'm not actually painting it, but I'm putting more of a paint wash on it to lighten the wood color. I repeated the process on all 3 drawers and then did the matching piece on the bottom of the dresser. So this looks pretty, but I feel like the 2 tones of the colors are just a little bit off. So we're not done experimenting yet, and I really didn't like the way now that the top of the dresser looked compared to the bottom. So guess what? I'm going to paint wash the top of the dresser and the sides and the drawers, and we're going to go a totally different direction with this. Yep, this is how a lot of my furniture flips get to where they end up. I try something, if it doesn't work, I try something else, and eventually I stumble on something that I'm happy with. Paint washing the top of the dresser was the hardest part, just due to how hot it was in my garage and how dry the air was. I had to work really quickly, keep my spray bottle handy, and always make sure that the paint was wet enough that I could do a final stroke from end to end of the dresser to make sure that it looked continuous and it would mirror wood tones. Thank you to everyone who's still with me, and a special thanks to all my subscribers. So here we go again with experimentation. I've let the paint wash dry for a couple days, and now what I'm doing is I'm going to go in with a very light coverage of wood stain. My hope is that this will warm it up just a little bit, give it a nice warm glow, and also accentuate the wood grain that is coming through the paint wash. Fingers crossed that this works, because if not, I think I'm going to have to spend a lot of time with acetone and my sander getting it back down to bare wood one more time. But I'm kind of liking the way that this looks, so I think I might be onto something. All right, here I go now, applying a light coat of stain to the top. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to gently mist it, and then I'm going to come in with a little shop rag here and my stain, apply the stain, and then go directly behind it with another shop towel to lift off the excess immediately. I don't want to let it dry. I don't want to get too much on it. I just want a really light coating. So here we go. Let's see if this works. You'll have to excuse the first few shots. I'm going to be in the way of the camera, but when I shift over to the other side, you'll be able to see what I'm doing a lot better. And this is achieving kind of the look that I want. It's almost acting like a glaze. It's just giving it a light coating of the color of the stain, which is warming it up and accenting some of the wood grain. I definitely wouldn't call this video a how to refinish furniture video. I think I would call it a how to rescue a bad refinishing job and not have to strip it back down again video. but, but this is why I love doing this because I learn something new every time. I get to try different techniques, I get to experiment, and in the end, I usually create something that I absolutely love. After letting everything dry for about 3 or 4 days, I'm going to come in now and spray it all with a top coat of polyacrylic in a matte finish. I always make sure to strain it before I put it in my sprayer, and I let each coat dry thoroughly. Then I go in and just very gently sand it down before applying the next coat. I do a total of at least 3 coats of polyacrylic, sometimes 4, just depending if I have extra left in my sprayer. It's finally time to reinstall those really cool drawer pulls and then add this cute vintage wallpaper to each of the drawers. Here's how it turned out. It looks very different than I first imagined, but I actually love this kind of whitewashed wood look with that dark accent drawer at the bottom. This is such a cool design, and I think it plays up the design of the dresser perfectly and will look great in any modern home. Please let me know what you think. Share with your friends, and I look forward to seeing you on my next furniture flipping adventure. This has been Carmen with Painted and Planted by Carmen.